The best salespeople in the world are the ones who do it without you even noticing. Everyone's a salesperson, especially if you're an entrepreneur. In the I'm Not Salesy podcast, join me, Cassie McKenzie, and my fabulous guests as we dive into the top strategies, mindset, and energetics around sales and money so that you can hear more, yes, I'm in, instead of crickets or getting ghosted. So if you're ready to fully book out your programs with aligned AF clients and have people chasing you down in your inbox, asking how to work with you, then subscribe to this podcast today and become not salesy too. Oh my goodness, you are going to love this episode. I am so excited. I've been talking to Shana Dewitt this morning already for like 15 minutes before recording this podcast episode. And oh my God, we should have probably been recording since the beginning because we've already gone through tons of different topics, like blown through them like a tornado. But I want to invite you back to the I'm Not Salesy podcast. And if you like seriously have tried every single strategy out there and to try to make sales or to try to put yourself out there, you don't know why you're so afraid to be visible, or I don't know, whatever other fear or doubt or misbelief or whatever is holding you back, then today is an amazing episode because Shanna Banana, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Shanna's a business and mindset coach that helps women take control of your businesses and your finances by creating a signature marketing system to consistently get clients. And like, I absolutely love this because Shanna uses not just your, she didn't just listen to a bunch of other people and just regurgitate what they said about what you're supposed to do. Like go to like Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within, and just create a coaching program off of that and call it something different. She actually studied like human design and NLP. So that's neuro linguistic programming. If you followed me for any time, you know I'm certified in it as well, like hypnosis and all the EFT and Reiki. And so this is going to be such a fun conversation because the thing that's really stood out to me from what we've been talking about prior to hitting record was how like a lot of times, so there's all these sorts of modalities, right? Like I had another guest on who was talking about RRT, rapid resolution therapy, which is, it sounds very similar to NLP with hypnosis, but maybe a little different. I haven't studied it. Don't listen to me about that particular part. Just listen to me about everything else. And, or you've got human design. So you hear people saying, you know, create your business along with your design, in alignment with your design, and you'll make it. And you hear people say, well, create your business along with, whatever clear gift you've been given and what spirit wants you to do. And then there's others who are like, I'm going to use NLP to shift every belief holding you back, and so it's hard sometimes. Like if you failed in the past in your business, like I just want to always say it's not your fault because there's a lot of info out there and that's proof. So, but I love Shanna, you bring everything all together, and it's sort of like going to the mindset candy store and choosing which part you want to use that works best and that you like the taste of most, right? So welcome. I can't wait.
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, we're having a great conversation about NLP, our training, our experiences. And I do believe that mindset is such a big part of creating a business, but just like building a business and looking at your mindset, it's not going to be the same for everyone. So I love what you said about Tony Robbins, because a little bit of a soapbox moment, but I'm so tired
Go
of
for it.
people selling things that just worked for them, but as the only answer. So
Mhm.
that when people go through these programs and they don't get the same results, their first thought, I mean, talk about mindset is, oh, it's me.
Mhm.
There's something wrong with me. This just isn't for me.
Yeah.
And
Or you
instead of,
didn't do enough. You're not
yeah, like
committed enough. You're not all in enough.
exactly. We don't need another excuse to beat ourselves up. So my approach is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And in fact, I believe that the moment that you have that feeling that's exciting inside when you daydream about your business, where you just let your mind slip off and you're not thinking about how it's never going to work for you and all those kind of
Mhm.
things. The moment you do that, it's actually already there and it's waiting. So what we're doing, like what we're talking about with mindset, is that we're trying to close the gap, because you can't ever out strategize the limitation you set for yourself based on what you believe is possible for you.
Oh my God. And that's the soundbite of the day. Okay, wrap it up. We're done. Thank you. It's been so wonderful hosting this podcast. I'm just kidding. Okay, I would never do that to you. You guys know I like talking too much. Okay, so yes, along those lines, right? Say that again, because that was just beautiful. About like you can't out strategy your limitations, right? Can you expand
Right.
on that?
So what we're saying is that you can have, the most amazing strategy, the best product, the greatest expertise, but you're never going to surpass what you believe is possible for you.
Yeah,
That's the real thing that is holding people back. So that's what we mean when we say, oh, mindset is 80% of the game, right?
yeah,
And I love crystals and affirmations and all that stuff, but you're not going to crystal or affirmation your way to where you want to be. Those are just extra fun things to do. What we're talking about is really creating that foundation, and it starts with your beliefs. And so NLP, human design, RRT, like these are all different ways that you can start to shift your beliefs because, a lot of the times it is subconscious or we've created habit. We're so into that we don't even know what we're doing. And so
right.
I
Automatic.
love for somebody to call me out on it because I'm still like shifting, pulling the layers back all the time.
Yeah. Well, you have to. I mean, oh, it's so crazy because especially when like people say, oh, it's so rewarding to be an entrepreneur. Like, leave the 9 to 5, escape the rat race. And I'm like, you mean like escape where people tell me exactly what I'm supposed to do every day and then I just do it and I get paid? Okay, that sounds actually pretty nice some days.
Yes, it
You
does.
know? You're like, oh, wait, what was wrong with that part again? You know?
The entrepreneurship is terrifying.
Yeah, it is. It's and like, of course, sometimes we make it look easy. Sometimes we're open and honest about the struggles and things. And I think just most helpful and most often it is to not just be open and honest about the struggles, but maybe wait a second and be like, okay, I went through this struggle and here's how I made it through because you're giving somebody, not just hope, but like you're also giving them a pathway that seems attainable. And so when you said you can't out strategy the limitations you put on yourself, which so true. And like I went through this time like early on in my business, and it seems like every time I go to up level, this happens too. So, I have to work through it again at different levels, but like I will go and apply like a different strategy and then I do all the things right, right? And I do all the things right. And the things you have, my one of my coaches is always like, you have two, she's a Tony Robbins fan. So, get ready. But like there's two things you have like control over: your actions and your belief in yourself. So like if you're taking all the actions, then there's got to be a belief that's holding you back. And so for the longest time, I was like, well, what do you mean belief? Like how do I believe in myself? And so what if you're just speaking to this, how do you recommend that somebody who's in a similar situation goes through figuring out what the belief is and being able to move forward? Because I'll tell you, like, there's nothing worse to a high achieving person than having inertia in your business, and sales, especially.
Well, I love that you said that you go through these issues again every time you up level because that's absolutely true. I mean, when I started my business, it's been about 9 years ago.
Mhm.
People weren't talking about mindset, and I thought I was just this crazy person. I didn't understand why I was like losing my crap.
Yeah.
But that kind of the pressure I think of having to be sustainable with your finances all on you, it brings up every kind of fear that you've ever had. So it is a mirror of all the things that you maybe would have never worked on beforehand. And again, those are going to come up every time you up level. It's because you're pushing your belief.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's the pushing of the belief that really shows this to you. But I think that a
Sure.
really good way to kind of check yourself for you're being able to address if it's a mindset thing or not is that it always comes down to some kind of fear.
Hmm.
So just being able to ask yourself, what am I really afraid of here?
Yeah.
will show you. And for me, a big indicator is avoiding. So it all comes back to fear. But when I'm avoiding doing something, it's like, okay, stop. What is a real reason that I am not wanting to do content or, whatever it is, not wanting to do my laundry, anything. If I'm avoiding something, then I know that there's a fear there and I need to take it seriously.
hmm One of the guests that I had recently, she's a money coach. She's the one that's like getting trained in RRT. And we were talking, she was talking on her Insta stories, and she put, like those little bubbles that you can put for in the DMs for people to reach out. It said like, do you avoid people like when you're mad at them or something? And she made the Insta stories about like, okay, well, if you are the type of person that if you're angry or like resentful, or if somebody pissed you off or you don't want to deal with somebody, and you just like kind of avoid them, or maybe like put the notifications on silent, or maybe like backwards out of that WhatsApp group, like, oops, you know, then you probably do the same thing with money, or you probably do the same. Like for her, it was talking about money. Like you probably avoid your bank account too, and I was like, oh my, or like your credit card bill. I was like, damn, like you are on to something there. After Christmas,
Yeah,
I was like, what credit card bill?
yeah, and it's a fear, right? Is if your bank account is really going to set the bar for your self-worth, you are going to avoid that as much as possible, right? And if you are afraid that you can't really deliver on what you're promising with your clients, you can do a million reels, right? But you're not going to land any clients because you're afraid that you're not going to deliver.
Yeah, totally. And so, okay, so when you say pushing the belief, then what can you explain what you mean by that for someone who doesn't know?
Pushing the belief is that you have to 100% believe that something is possible for you. Now, where a lot of people, I think, find this really challenging, especially online, it's like, oh, where's your next 20K month and all this kind of stuff. You're never going to get there if you don't believe that that's possible for you. And so the better thing to do is say, what maybe feels a little bit scary or maybe a little bit uncomfortable, but I can believe this. And if it's that you can make $2,000 a month, then that's the place that you need to start. And after you do that, because we're always, our brains are always wanting evidence that something is true, then you say, okay, well, I'm going to make $4,000 a month. And you just keep moving along until you get to the place that feels right. Instead of trying to set this insane goal for yourself, and then, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to hit it.
hmm
But if you don't believe it, it's the belief part that's so important.
Yeah, especially, and you can't get into doing sales since this is the I'm Not Salesy podcast. And I spent 20 years in pharmaceutical sales. And, back then I didn't realize that my company paid for my mentor. I just thought my boss was like totally like chapping my ass by spending a day with me every single month. But like now you look at it like, oh, that's a VIP day. That's worth like $3,000. But
Yeah.
back then you're like, crap, let me see how I can waste my time all day long and take him to CPK for an hour and a half till he has to get on his flight at 2. It's so funny how you reframe things once you're an entrepreneur. Anyway, so, back in those days though, it was kind of like, you're given your messaging, you're given your product, you're trained with world-class training, and you've already been interviewed as a great candidate for someone who can do the job. Now, when you go out an entrepreneur, you might take an accountant or somebody who has like a finance background who now wants to be a finance coach. And so maybe they're great at what they do, but the sales part freaks them the complete fuck out, right? Because they're like, oh my God, now people have to see me. I have to make content. And then my content's not like, how do I even do that? So that to me is where a lot can come up too. You really need a mindset coach if you don't have a sales background, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think that there's just so many misconceptions about sales
Yeah.
because if you have your own business, that's not something that you have an expertise in. It's something that you have to learn how to do. And so, sales to me starts in the very beginning. It starts with your messaging. You're
Mm,
selling all the time.
Hmm.
And but most people think about sales as that actual call. And that's where it's like a pressure point, like, oh my God, if they don't say yes, if they
Hmm.
say no, they get so scared and they put all this pressure on it.
Hmm.
And that's also a misconception because most of sales happens after the call. So it's
Yeah.
really, yeah, it's definitely a place where it can bring up so many fears and beliefs.
Hmm. Yeah, and like old trauma too of like, I mean, I noticed that I was having like a lull in my sales at one point because I realized I had this memory of like not being picked, as like a cool girl in 10th grade, or like, oh, never being included all that often in the parties, and it was like some unrelated memory that was like, and I was like meditating when this came to me. I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, wait, what is that? I had this vision of me like standing in my driveway of the house we lived in high school in Virginia. And I was like, I'm by myself hanging out with like my young brothers and like everybody else is out. So like that not being chosen was the fear, And so it's easier to just say, well, I'm just gonna make sure I don't get chosen and put up all these like energetic walls somehow. So I know if I did that with 20 years of experience, then there's a lot of other people out there who might subconsciously do it too. So, I mean, what would you say to all of that? Because that's some mind fuckery right there?
Yeah. So this is what I love so much about mindset work is that sometimes we can know what we think, like you just gave a really great example, but other times we don't know. We just know we have this belief. We don't know, we have no idea where it came from. So that would be a really great. The two things that I would look at is one, your human design chart, because that could give you some information about what your initial fears are. And
Hmm.
these are just the things that you're kind of predisposed to think. So your chart may say that this is kind of something that a sense of belonging or self-worth, maybe something that you have to not like struggle with, but that might be the thing that you're working through in this lifetime. And so that's super important information to know, right? Because then you can
Yeah.
say, oh, well, I know this is my thing. So I see it show up here and I see it show up here. And now I know how to approach it in a way that's going to benefit me. Another thing is that would be a really good example of something to do and use the time technique for. So
Mhm.
either we would just focus on the belief. And so if you didn't remember that, that might be something that would show up in the time technique. Or even if you did, you may not know the root of it, like what you can remember, but that might just be an example of how it's played out and not where it actually started. And
Yeah.
so, what we could do is go into your subconscious so that we could find out the root of the belief. And then, once you know where the root comes from, you get the learning around it, which is basically a reframe, right? And you think about it differently. But I
Yeah.
have seen people go through that technique around sales, but it's money
Yeah.
and have just a fear that if they had money, that people were going to take it from them, fears that they were unlovable. And so in their minds, if they're unlovable, they don't deserve to have money. Like so many things. I mean, I could probably name off like 100 different ways that people have had beliefs that have kept them from making money.
Yeah, go ahead. You can name off as many as you want. I find this fascinating. I'm sure that. So I had a podcast before this, I need to say, the Topless Manifester. So when I first became a coach, when I came out of pharma sales, I think I just wanted a break from selling or was lying to myself about what I could, it's like, I haven't had an online business. How am I supposed to help other people do it? Well, maybe your business degree and like 20 fucking years of sales experience,
Right.
you know? But like, of course I didn't get there. So I did money and manifestation. Plus it was more like, you know, airy fairy that I love. I still apply that to the sales training that I do. Anyway, and so I forget where I was. Oh yeah, the topless manifester. So all of my mate, like most, let me just say most of the most popular episodes were always around like money and money mindset because I love this topic so much. And I think, your passion for it comes out, or maybe the audience just who doesn't want to learn how to make more money, right? Like if you do,
Yeah.
you're in the wrong podcast anyway. Go listen to one of those boring ones with like two men talking about sales strategy.
Yeah. I mean, it does. It affects everything. And so I can give you a kind of recent example of someone who I worked with, and we looked at her specifically on money blocks. Like that's all we were talking about. So what I would see inside of her business is that she is highly conscious of people, like people in the world and what they're going through and social justice. And these things
Okay.
hit her very hard.
Hmm.
She's a reflector. That's actually her job here. It's supposed to be to reflect back and take the temperature of the health of the world. So I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense that, you feel this way.
Hmm.
Okay. But then when it came to charging for her services, she would always get so bogged down into making sure that everybody could afford it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so she had a couple of things. One is making sure that she felt like everybody could afford it, that it was fair for everybody. The
Hmm.
second one was that she would always tell herself that people couldn't afford her,
Oh,
that they weren't willing to pay for whatever it was. And the third thing was more of a personal thing with her that she noticed where she had a thing where she would stockpile stuff to feel safe, right?
okay.
That's just something that people do to feel safe. So she would kind of buy things to feel safe, to feel like organized. She had an avoidance when it came to budgeting,
Hmm.
and it seemed like she could make a lot of money, but she just couldn't hold on to the money.
Yeah.
Okay. So during her session, like some of the things we talked about, where of course we did time technique and we figured out sort of where some of the root of these things came from, which was really great. And a lot of it was around her parents who had an MLM company,
Hmm.
and they always sacrificed everything for the job, and but they didn't have money, but they were always doing things, and she felt like they weren't there because they were trying to make money. And then she had a thing where her um dad would always ask to borrow money from her. Like she had a lot of stuff going on, but basically what we kind of wrapped it around is that it wasn't safe for her to have money.
Okay.
Okay, so first we had to work on the fact that it's safe for you to have money, and
Hmm.
then kind of go back into the other parts about making it okay for everybody else, where it's got to be okay for you and really putting the focus on what you're going to do with your money, like how you're going to take care of your family. You've had it shed a new child. Like, what about their college fund? Like, all these things that you need to do to take care of your most important communities, your, nuclear family. And then after that, then what are some ways where you can also do something that gives back to the community? So we talked about how to restructure things, for example, to have like a couple of free memberships every year, or
Hmm.
let people that are becoming a member of her program be able to sponsor a scholarship for someone else. Like so
Yeah.
many different things. It kind of broadened it out so that it still felt good for her.
So she felt like she could serve people at a level, but then also serve herself and her family. Yeah.
Yes.
So did she by chance have an open heart center?
Well, she's a reflector, so
Oh,
she's wide open
wide
everywhere.
open. Oh, so
Yeah.
like, so I'm a manifesting generator, and so I
Mhm.
have three open centers. So my root, my ajna, and my head. So yeah, that would make sense because I think one of those always came up too. It's not safe to have money. So like when I was in pharmaceutical sales, I tell this story a lot that I built up my checking account to like $100,000. I was probably like 25, 26 years old, but I was married at the time. I got married really young, like a dumbass. And so it was just like, sorry, it's like very uncensored here. And so but then I got divorced in like 2006, which is when I moved into Midtown Atlanta and like had so much fun. And you know, I ended up having like I lost like 85,000 in the marriage. Like in the between the lawyer fees and splitting the assets and splitting the house, I lost the dog. I had to go get another dog from the Atlanta Humane Society, who I loved. She was like one of my little, soul sisters, Dixie. But I think it goes back to when I was young and when I was like 3 years old, my dad went to jail, and he went to jail for tax evasion, is what it was, federal. And it wasn't just jail. He was like in the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, which is why we lived in LJ in the hills so that the feds couldn't find them when my mom was pregnant with me. Yay. Yay life. And so like for the first 5 years of my life, it was, dad's here, dad's gone, dad's in jail. Like I remember visiting, the pen, and even then we moved to Florida, and I don't know, it was like all the same things going on all the time. Well, then I remember one day though, because we had a lot of money back then. I mean, they were bringing a lot of weed into the US. Like, geez, we were like stacked, but it just wasn't like legit. They weren't paying taxes, because how do you do that? You can't show receipts. And so I remember one day my mom cutting a check for $66,000. Like, I don't know why I remember this. I must have been like 5. And I remember seeing this check and them like arguing about it, but like it was to pay the IRS, to pay them the settlement, right? And then after that, we didn't live in our 2-story house. We moved into some like, you know, tiny ass place over, like, not by the beach anymore, you know? And then I think that played out like time and time again throughout my life. Like, I would build a lot of money up, and then
Mm.
something would happen and it would just go away. And so, and even recently it started to happen too again. Like last year, my husband got laid off, and we sold a house and made like double the profit last year. And so I noticed that shit happening then too. I was like, whoa, 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 no, slow your roll here. Like, there's no availability, but it's scary when you're in the moment. It's so easy to go back to your old patterns, because you're like, oh fuck, like, is this happening again and again and again? Like, is it really ever gone, or is it, you know what I mean? It's scary. I can see why people would go through it, especially if you don't know about these tools, because like even people who know better like us go through it, and if you don't catch it and you don't treat it, then it's kind of like a cancer inside of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's also a really good example of a way you can experience that. But it's good that you notice that there's a pattern, because that gives you a place to start from. But what I love about these techniques is like the example that I gave, she
Yeah.
didn't realize all of that stuff coming in. It's just you sometimes need help to be able to see
Yeah.
these bigger patterns, to have somebody to kind of talk through it with, so that they can point out where you're repeating the same thing, right? Because we're just going to keep doing it over and over again until we get the
Yeah.
lessons. And you know,
Exactly.
we have all of these problems. Yeah. I mean, money is so interesting. I mean, if you had asked me 2 years ago if I had a money story, that's something we commonly talk about, I would have said, no, I love money. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I definitely did. I mean, it really took me a while to figure out what exactly that story was about.
Hmm.
What, why I felt the way that I did. But if you feel like you struggle with money, getting money, holding on to money, then you definitely have something that you can dig a little bit deeper in. I think that mostly when we think about money story, it's like, oh, you think money's bad or evil. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people do.
Yeah.
A lot of people do have that fear, but I was like, I love money, so I don't really
Yeah,
know
me
why
too.
money is not loving me right now. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure what the problem is.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's definitely a big part of sales, because you can just spend so much time getting your services perfect, working on your marketing, and then just things just still are not happening for you.
Right. Yeah. And you know what happened? It's so crazy, because when my husband got laid off in July last year, it was right when I was launching a new offer. And it was like a couple months where like I had done everything, and I was like, what in the heck? Like, what is happening here? This is a great offer. Why is it not selling? And then it was happening right at that same time that he had gotten laid off, which is like, it's like, oh, okay, now I see. Because it's not safe. It's not safe to have any money. So of course you're not going to bring in any sales. Like, if you think that it's just going to go away by hustling your balls off, like that's not going to work either. So it's
So do
crazy.
you think it's that you get to a certain point of having money where then it doesn't feel safe? Because every example you've given, it's like there was an influx of money and then there was like no money.
Yeah, well, it was I don't know, because in this case it was like an outside circumstance,
Mhm.
or maybe maybe like like my dad left at an early age too, so it could have been, like the money relationship, thinking money's going to abandon you. So if you've got something going really, really great, and by the way, I love sharing these like real stories here, because I don't think a lot of people do, and I think it, like, if you're listening, it makes you feel like, holy shit, she teaches a course called Big Money Vibes, and she goes through this shit too. Like, yes, like
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah,
coach.
everybody does. Like, let's just normalize it.
Yeah,
Everybody has their own stuff.
yeah, yeah. Even talking about it, I was like, oh my God. But wait, what was the question? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think maybe just like it can't stick around, like things can't get so good that then, they can't go up and up and up. At some point, like the rug's pulled out and you backslide back to where you started. Like you start, like Monopoly, like start at zero again, and you can build your way back up again. But I would rather just build my way back up from like 150K in the bank and then, you know,
Yeah.
not have the stress and all that comes back into it. You know what I mean? Because I think there's
So,
also a lot of people who make like millions who can't hold on. Like my coach is one of them, like not my money coach or anything, but like business wise, like she'll even say like I need to learn how to stop spending so much money, like she'll have a lot that comes in, but then a lot goes out at the same time. And then,
mhm.
what do you have to show for it? And that shit bothers me. I mean, not, it doesn't bother me that it happens to her, but when it happens to me, it really bothers
Yeah.
me.
So one of my money stories is my dad was a farmer and he worked a lot, like all the time. We could never really go on vacations, or we would go and he would stay home. And I just thought the cost of being an entrepreneur is too high. I'm not interested in the trade-off. And so I'll, I mean, this is funny, but my now husband took me to this thing where there was like a fortune teller and I did it for fun. And she said, well, you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to do pretty well. And I started laughing. I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I have zero interest in ever doing that, right? Ever. And it didn't really occur to me until like years later when I'm in it that I did believe that there was a trade-off that was so high. And so I felt like being an entrepreneur is so hard. Getting clients is so hard. Like it's so hard all the time. And I would just work like crazy, right? But I thought that that was what was required to
Yeah,
be able to get clients.
yeah.
So it may seem a little bit indirect from money, but it's not, right? Because I felt like if I'm going to deserve money, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, there has to be a blood sacrifice, right? There has to
Yeah.
be like a
Hmm.
serious sacrifice here. And that was a huge one. I mean, a huge one to be able to overcome. But again, that's why I'm so passionate about the mindset portion, because there are so many ways that we self-sabotage and we make shit so hard on ourselves. And it went so yeah, entrepreneurship is challenging, but it shouldn't be that hard. You shouldn't feel like you're having to like climb the mountain every single day. It shouldn't be, but we make it hard. It's our mindset. I really believe that.
Yeah, oh, totally. And like your unwillingness to look at it too just compounds it, because then the emotions get stronger and stronger working against you. Excuse me. So like out of curiosity, how long, like if somebody's sitting there and saying like, okay, oh, okay, I probably have a few things going on if these two girls do, you know what I mean? Like how long does it take to work through these? I know some techniques work faster than others, and so things like time techniques or hypnosis, what's been your experience, especially with the clients or even yourself that you've worked with and starting to see like the cruise ship turn around, you know?
Okay, so I have this thing where it really stumps me when I write copy a lot of times because I never want to say anything that I don't believe is 100% true. Like I can't lie. Like I have to be like over the top honest about things. So when I say this, believe me, I am actually telling you the truth. It's instantaneous.
God.
That's what's so crazy. So one of my clients recently said that NLP feels like a easy button. She said, I don't know why everybody doesn't know about this, because your mind will shift instantly. It's like everybody's had a moment where they heard something and they were like, wow, I never thought about that before. What Oprah calls like her aha moments.
Yeah.
It feels like that. And you're just like, oh, it really just changes your outlook. And so then your actions change.
Mm,
So the belief change, I believe it's instantaneous.
mm,
With human design, I'm like a lot of times my clients will just sit there and cry because you have so much acceptance for the things you thought were wrong about yourself that you
Right.
feel freed from all of that. You feel freed from the shoulds, and it instantly changes your energy. With NLP, you're going straight to your subconscious and you're just changing things.
Yeah.
It really is instant. And I had another client say, it's like months of therapy. You just roll it up in a few minutes. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah.
But it really does work that well because it's the shift in your belief. And then you start showing up differently. So after sessions, and this right now, I'm specifically just talking about the money mindset breakthrough session, which is just 2 hours.
Mhm.
So I don't know if is it worth you to spend 2 hours to change your mindset beliefs or not. But I've had clients come back and say that they had things that they were just avoiding and they took action, and like that led to them getting the next client. That they, I mean, all these changes that they've made in their business, that they started that program that they wanted to start, that they created a budget slip for, a budget for themselves, that they went and spoke with an investor, like, I mean, all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
it's the first, the mindset, the belief, right? And then it's the action. And that's again the reason why we're talking so much about how it relates to business and sales, because you got to have the belief so that you actually take action.
Yeah. And the right action. It's like aligned action because like you can take action and sit at your computer all the live long day and then you're like, shit, I've been working so much and nothing's coming from it. Usually it's like, that's when you're kind of doing like a lot of the unaligned things. Like I just learned how to use LinkedIn because Instagram just felt like a complete waste of time. Like every day that goes by, it's like just for me. I've been consistent on it for months, right? And so I think as soon as I started talking about LinkedIn, my engagement went down. I think Instagram's listening to me talk about this other platform. Anyway, but I am finding I'm absolutely in love with LinkedIn. I wish I had been there 3 years ago. Like, it is ridiculous how easy it is to get in touch with really quality people, connections, leads, actually talk to them, have conversations. Like, it's totally different and way more efficient, which I love. I've got 2 kids. Like, I don't, they, can barely get a thought in half the time. And so, um, I've been spending like sometimes I'll be like, oh my God, I was just sitting there connecting and talking to people for like 2 hours on LinkedIn. I don't even know where the time went. Like it's like a time warp. So, your that belief though, because it was actually I had done a hypnosis for myself around because I just rediscovered some of those old beliefs and I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna nip this shit in the bud right now. And so like every night I started to go to sleep with the hypnosis in, and literally within the first day, I was like, oh my God, I feel different. And then the next day, I felt different. And then by the next week, like I got speaking engagements, invited to be on like podcasts, which I hadn't been invited on a podcast in a long ass time to talk in somebody's mastermind. Like the list goes, it was like a list like this big, and it was just in a 5-day period. And it was just like basically the Monday after I had started doing the hypnosis and energy. I had done like a couple energy work things too, but it's amazing if you can just be honest with yourself. Seriously, talking about that trust.
Definitely.
So tell people about these sessions though, because I was just looking at the show notes and I don't have a link for getting information for you on your money mindset sessions.
So, as you said, I'm a business coach and a mindset coach. And the way that I work with clients is mostly one to one. So, one to one coaching, and we do NLP. We use human design to create your signature marketing system. But you can also sign up for a money mindset breakthrough session. It's a 2 hour session. I run your human design chart. We look at all of that. We do an NLP session when we kind of get down to some of the thoughts or beliefs that are actually holding you back. And we have the NLP time technique. That's what I use. That's what we were talking about before the show, using the time technique there. And then I kind of give you some takeaways and bullet points of things so you can start to take that action that we like to also do with your money mindset. And then I just kind of come back and check in on you. So again, it's 2 hours. It's really cheap too, to be honest. It's like
Do
$87
what?
for the 387.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's really reasonable. Yeah.
I know it's very reasonable. For all of you guys that are like, yes, I have mindset issues, and I also am scared to spend money. But
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like it is very reasonable considering the kind of results that people get because it's 2 hours. We really just like go in there, figure out what's holding you back, and then use the time technique to be able to lift and shift all of that out of the way. And I just kind of depending on how long the session takes to kind of go through the first part. I mean, sometimes we'll do two or three things, and maybe we just do one thing. It kind of really just depends on the person, but it's definitely a mix of human design and NLP to help you with whatever kind of beliefs are keeping you from making money.
Oh my God, I love it. Oh, this has been so fun. I mean, that is the key, guys. You've got to be doing this work when you're doing the strategy. I know I am definitely I'm a strategy girl, but I'm also just as much energy and mindset too. And you can't have one without the other and expect to be one of the people who isn't salesy. Like those people who are leaving you like the cold pitches where they're like, "Hi, my name is Jeff and I think you can use my blah, blah, blah." Like the people who look salesy are the ones who aren't doing the mindset work because because then they're using these crappy tactics like that. Don't be a crappy tactic person. You go do your
Yeah.
mindset work and
And I'm going to also add to that here because we're talking about, being salesy or not. That kind of technique works for somebody who is a manifester. Manifestors are like 8% of the population. Those cold hard pitches or whatever. So it only works for about 8% of the population. So more than likely that's not for you. So don't feel bad that that doesn't work for you. I mean, and that's definitely not what sales is, right? Or like nobody would be selling anything.
no, I much prefer like connecting with somebody, asking like my style is like, who do you work with so that I can connect you because my network is growing, and with like actual intention of being like, oh, well, you need a diversity advocate for HR. Okay, well, here, let me connect you with this person. I literally did that like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, oh my God, I love connecting people. I'm like a dog that's like, hey, do you want this bone? I'll give it to you. Hey, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Relationships.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That's to me the only real way to sell. It's amazing.
Hmm.
Oh, well, Shanna, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I love it. And tell everybody where they can come find you and DM you if they want to book a money mindset session.
Well, you can read all about the money mindset sessions and hear some testimonials at shanadewitt.com. But you
Okay.
can also find me on Instagram, and I have a Facebook group called the Magnetic Entrepreneur. So we talk a lot about the strategy and the mindset that you need to be able to create your own signature marketing system and make sure that you are, showing up in your business and taking action.
Awesome. I love it. I'll have to come join your group because this has been so much fun.
Mhm.
Vibe. So love it. Okay. Well, thank you, Shanna. I really appreciate it. And you guys go get in touch with Shanna. Let her help you. Help us help you. And we will see you. I will talk with you on the next episode. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, though, so more people can find it. And if you love this episode, then go leave a 5-star rating and a review. And if you do, screenshot it and send it to me in a DM, either on Instagram or LinkedIn, and I'll send you like a special gift in return. And it is a really juicy gift, but I'm not telling you what it is right now. You have to, leave a review first. Okay. I love you. Mean it. I'll talk with you next time. Bye. If you've ever sat there and looked at your DMs and been like, oh my God, this is literally full of crickets, like there's nothing going on but the rent here. And you're like, oh my gosh, what does it take to actually have an inbox full of people wanting to work with me, having leads coming to me every day, having people saying, send me the link, and really have these results that you see other people having, and you just like think that there's something wrong with you because you're not getting it. If this is you, then listen up. I have the most amazing way to work together. And I feel like this is something that you don't have to experience, right? If you've posted up content every single day for months now and you're still not getting any inbound leads reaching out to you, and you actually want to fill your programs with ideal clients and have people saying, send me the link, and really build your business, but you feel like it should be working right now, then don't throw in the towel. Come to Mama Cass. I want to see you filling your programs with dream clients. I want you to feel like you're so completely confident when you're promoting your programs, and that you hear way more of a yes instead of getting ghosted, and you know exactly what to say during your sales conversations. And when you show up, whether it's in the DMs and you're talking to like the crazy amount of people that really want to work with you, or you're on a sales call, I want you to be able to get on the phone and get on sales calls with people who are already pre-sold, saying, how can we get started without you even having to pitch them? And even when you do have to pitch them and you get to that point in the sales call, it's so easy breezy that it's just like, it's easy as breathing, right? I want you to know that this is possible, because this month I'm starting with a group of experts, a group of coaches and consultants who really want to grow their business. And I'm going to teach you how to turn your coaching business into a sales machine, but one that's actually fun to run, right? Like the Maserati of sales machines, a Porsche, right? So we're going to go way past just giving you trainings and processes to create a steady flow of inbound quality leads. I'm actually going to be practicing scenarios with you so that you know how to close your sales, you know how to develop customer relationships, and you get real-time feedback on your actual DMs so that you start closing sales in the DMs and you start hearing more yes on your sales calls. And I'm even going to give you the tools to clear out the old fears and beliefs and the frustrating emotions that have prevented you from making sales, so that you start stacking money in your bank account. There's nothing else like this online. I expect this first group to fill up really quickly, and I want you to send me a DM on Instagram or on LinkedIn with the word sales. Tell me that you heard this on the podcast, and I will get you the details, because I want to see you wildly successful. I want this ripple effect to really take off. It makes me happier to see your results than to see my own, because it means that this ripple effect is happening, and that the work we do together is going far beyond just the call that we are on, that it's going on to impact your clients and impact the lives surrounded by them as well. This is the vibe. So this is what we're doing in the Sales Queen Takeover. You're going to learn how to attract leads that are aligned with you, that feel great working with. You're going to learn how to do this in a way where you're able to easily close them on the sales calls, easily close in the DMs, so that you can get to work helping the people who need you most, and that you can have an insane amount of impact on the world on a daily basis. So I look forward to seeing you there. I am so excited for this to get started, and I can't wait to hear what you create. If you loved this episode of I'm Not Salesy, then go ahead and hit subscribe so that you're notified of the next episode. And also leave a 5-star rating and a review. And if you send it to the link in the show notes, we will send you a present in return. We also love to feature reviews on the podcast as well. So we'd love to feature yours. So go ahead and send a screenshot to the inbox and come find me on social media. I love hearing what you're up to and how you're becoming not salesy too. I'll see you in the next episode.